Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the inevitable happens as the Philippines detects its first two cases of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. How will this impact the current COVID-19 response? Also, authorities appeal to all to get vaccinated following the entry of the new variant. Vaccine expert panel member Doctor Rontgene Solante joins us live. And later, Miss Universe Philippines Beatriz Luigi Gomez returns home. We'll catch up with the Filipina Beauty live. Health and quarantine officials are pressed for time as they rush to track all possible close contacts of two travelers from abroad infected with the Omicron variant. The health department found the first two cases of this highly transmissible variant in genome sequencing Tuesday. One is a 48-year-old returning Filipino from Japan on board Philippines Airlines flight number 0427. He arrived on December 5th and tested positive on the 7th. The passenger is asymptomatic. The second patient is a 37-year-old Nigerian who arrived from Nigeria on November 30 via Oman Air flight number WY843. He also tested positive on December 7th and has no symptoms. Both are in an isolation facility with a confirmed entry of the dreaded variant that is feared to spread faster. What changes should be done in our COVID-19 response? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have vaccine expert panel member and infectious diseases expert, Dr. Rontgene Solante. Dr. Solante, welcome back to the source and thank you so much for your time.
Hi, Pinky. Good morning.
So sabi nga nila, it's not a matter of if, but when. So when already happened, two passengers both arriving 1 day apart, November 30 and December 1. You know, what I wanted to first ask you is that while they arrived November 30 and December 1, they were discovered to have the Omicron variant, yes, the other day. But also it was a report was released yesterday. It took about, I would say, 15 days from the date of arrival. Is that a cause for concern? Matagal ho ba yun?
Well, not so much of a concern because at least we detected that they have Omicron variant COVID-19. And at the same time, I think the authorities, including in coordination with quarantine and Department of Health, are already in the mode of contact tracing and really looking for those who are in close contact with this population, with these two positive Omicron variant. Now, by usual timeline, 15 days is really longer, no? And we know that because that's one of our limitations. But with that limitations, we also have what we call other aspect that one, during their arrival, they are also being tested, they are quarantined. And I think the crucial point here, in case the contact tracing of those possible contacts of these two index cases.
Okay, so you're not at all concerned about the pace by which the variant was detected, 15 days since arrival. Okay, so sabi nyo nga, what's important here is to contact trace. First, what can you tell us about the passengers in both flights in terms of transmissibility of this Omicron variant? Because from what we know, of course, data is emerging, new data emerges almost every day or every week. How susceptible, I guess, or how important is it to track all the passengers of both flights?
Yeah, that's why one is that during the flight, how many hours of flight is that? No, that's more than 1 or 2 hours. So there is really a longer interaction with these passengers. Second is that both of these passengers, one is asymptomatic, so that means he did not know that he has the infection or is carrying the virus. And very crucial there is that the number of people contact with him, close contact with him. Okay, we know airplanes have a very good ventilation and filtration mechanism. No, in fact, one of the best because they also have HEPA filter. But the problem there is that during that flight, how many of those he has close contact, and at an instance were they wearing a face mask, were they observing the physical distance. So these are the more important part when we do investigation of possible close contact and possible other infected passengers in that flight.
So are you saying that ang kailangan lang pong hanapin yung posibleng close contact ng dalawang pasahero, not necessarily everyone in the flight?
Actually, on that note, since this is very highly transmissible, the usual is always the close contact of that index case. But since we are in a pandemic, everyone should also be contact traced. All of those passengers inside that airplane.
Okay, so we will set aside na dapat close contact lang ang hanapin. Dapat ho talaga, you're saying, hanapin lahat ng pasahero that took that flight, those two flights.
Yes, correct. Because the contact there may not just be inside the plane. There may be contact prior to boarding, and then during the time that when these two passengers were around on that plane, so we don't know. So to be safe, all of those inside the plane should be tested and contact traced.
And as mentioned, no, Dr. Solante, please correct me if I'm wrong, compared to Delta, the transmissibility of Omicron is 4 times more than that of Delta?
Yes, correct. It's highly transmissible and even double or triple the way Delta can be transmitted.
And also a follow-up on that, does it even matter if the passenger was symptomatic or asymptomatic?
The danger there is that if you are asymptomatic and you are infectious, so you may be complacent with the health protocol because you don't have the symptoms. And I think one thing, are they vaccinated? No? Medyo bumababa ang ano natin yan pag sinabi natin meron tayong bakuna and then kampante tayo before they took the flight, they were negative. Okay? So nandun yung baka they will be thinking na okay lang sila, no? And that's why it's very crucial because higher risk of transmission when you don't have the symptoms.
I'm sure malaki din po yung gulat ng dalawa because I can imagine that it's a requirement prior to boarding the flight. They must present a negative RT-PCR test.
Yes, and obviously, that's the reason why that in our protocol, upon arrival, 5 days after, they should also be retested again.
At kaya doon na po na-discover upon their testing 5 days later upon arrival here in the country. We need to take a very short break. The Source will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, vaccine expert panel and member and infectious diseases expert, Dr. Rontgene Solante. Dr. Solante, to those passengers who may be watching us right now, obviously, as we've talked about, they need to contact the Department of Health. And what additional advice can you give them?
Well, one, they should isolate themselves, especially for those who are at home and possible contact of the index case. They should monitor themselves for the signs and symptoms. Okay, and those are important points here that they should be informed of.
But that's what I kind of seem to not understand, to monitor themselves for signs and symptoms, because they can clearly just be asymptomatic and carry the virus as well. So they might not have any symptoms, yet they could be carriers.
But the observation period of 14 days should now apply to them from the start of their contact of this positive, because we don't know if they will develop the symptoms late or early, or they may be totally asymptomatic. And within those period, I think there should be proper coordination of a regular testing, not only once they will be tested negative, they should, there should be a repeat of the test that they will be undergoing while they will be isolated.
yun po ang mangyayari. They need to be retested again. What if they argue that it's been 15 days since we arrived? Because diba, Dr. Solante, that grace period really is 14 days. After 14 days, supposed to be, whether you have it or not, hindi na ho kayo hindi na kayo infectious kasi tapos na po kayo dun sa cycle ng virus.
Yeah, so if the day from the contact of the positive is already more than 15 days, then most likely the Department of Health can already release them, no? Because that's in our guideline. We only have to monitor them for 14 days, and unless there are other way of looking at it that we are not confident of the 14 days, because like in some countries, they're increasing the observation period from 14 days to 21 days, no? Especially for those with contact with Omicron variant. So these are the things that are set in place naman.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go with this, because they arrived November 30 and December 1. It's already December 16. The point I'm trying to make is they're done with the 14 days observation period. I guess what's even more important is who their close contacts are, from the index case to the passengers and to the passengers' close contacts.
Yes, that's correct, no, and that's why the coordination here is very crucial, because even though they are already released from observation because of the lapse already of 14 days or 15 days or more, but what about their close contact? And that should also be, there will also be monitoring of those close contact of the secondary contacts.
That's the last question, Dr. Solante. What should government do in addition or as an extra measure now that we have Omicron here in the country?
Okay, I think hindi naman magbabago yung mga ginagawa natin, no? Because everything is already in place and the government has, in fact, we have been preparing for this even with the Delta, no? Walang nagbabago, no? And I think ang una dyan is to really implement the health protocol, that there will be monitoring of the health protocol. Keep the awareness that even with the holiday season, nandun pa rin yung compliance natin sa health protocol. And of course, vaccination forms a very critical part of this pandemic, and we encourage everyone, particularly those who are not yet vaccinated, to get the vaccine now, no? Because we don't want what happened again during the Delta surge, when only less of the population were vaccinated and most of those hospitalized were those that were not vaccinated.
Dr. Rontgene Solante, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And coming up, she made the Philippines proud for continuing the country's placement streak in the Miss Universe for 12 years in a row. We'll catch up with Miss Universe Philippines, Beatriz Luigi Gomez, after the break.